Today's episode of the Bleav in Steelers show is brought to you by betonline.ag. We're through 5 weeks of the NFL season. Ton to gamble on. College football, postseason baseball, the NFL. Betonline.ag takes care of any of your sports gambling needs.
Hey, 365, 24/7, regardless on what sport. Make sure y'all go to betonline.ag.
And Ike, new promo now. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Use our promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Bleav in Steelers show on the Bleav Network. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined as always by my guy, two-time Super Bowl champion and 12-year veteran of the Pittsburgh Steelers, now a scout for the Steelers as well, number 24, Ike Taylor. IT, when I lived in Florida for 5 years, today's guest, I would read his coverage when I wanted to know all things about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL. Very excited to welcome Rick Stroud on today's show. And let's get right to it because, Rick, we only have you for about 10 minutes. Rick, I wanted to know right off the top, have you ever been accused of roughing Tom Brady in an interview for getting too close? Because that call on Sunday was something else.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And I asked the question that I don't think he appreciated because I think I used the word lobbying for calls in my question. But listen, we all know that the league has an emphasis on protecting these quarterbacks. I don't know how you could play today. You're not allowed to hit these guys below the knees. You can't hit them above the shoulders. You can't throw them on the ground too hard.
Right.
I talked to some defensive linemen on the Bucs yesterday who were the benefactors of that call, and they said, we hate seeing it, man. It's these guys play football just like us, and you work so hard to get to a quarterback that now you got to worry about how you're going to put them on the ground. So they obviously benefited from that call. It didn't mean that the Carolina Panthers are going to win the football game, but they'd been given a chance to win it, and that was a tremendous turning point in the game at that point. But having said that, when you play 23 years and you're the GOAT, I guess they listen to you.
The impact, because you've been covering the Tampa Bay Bucs for a while, the impact when Tampa had got Tom Brady, how instantaneously it was. What did you see coming off of Tom and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just in a couple of months? Because it was during the pandemic. What did you see?
It was, Ike, it was unlike anything that I was prepared for. I mean, obviously the pandemic was a whole nother layer of situation there. But, you follow Tom Brady from afar. I did all those Super Bowls that he was in. And then to be around him and actually see it firsthand. I mean, he got those guys together at a high school. They weren't able to work out. To watch him, literally walk receivers through routes, demand a certain work ethic. And I think just, what he represents certainly heightens everybody's awareness on the team. Whether you're an offensive lineman, you don't want to get beat. You don't want to be the guy that gets Tom Brady knocked out of the league. There's so much attention to detail, and he just prepares better than anybody's ever done it. He has all the answers to the test. So if guys want to work and learn things, he's willing to help everybody. And that goes from, just on the football field to nutrition to, what he does to stay, as viable as he is at age 45, which is just incredible. But to see it up close day in, day out, you really do get appreciation for why this guy is still playing at a high level at 45 and why he's won 7 Super Bowls.
Rick Stroud became a beat writer for the Tampa Bay Times because, can you finish it off?
Because they asked me. I was a baseball guy my whole life. I grew up playing baseball. I was a college baseball player at Arkansas State. I loved all sports, obviously. But when I got back to Tampa and started writing, we had a very good newspaper, the Tampa Bay Times, then the St. Petersburg Times. And really, we didn't have pro baseball. We didn't have hockey yet. And so the Bucs were the big pro team in town. And so I had covered the Florida Gators for a number of years, did high schools before that, and just kind of worked my way up. And when it was offered to me, I didn't plan on doing it this long. I can tell you that there was a lot of bad years, but when you look back at what they've been through as an organization, coming up from one of the worst teams ever in NFL history, and then you go through coaches like a Tony Dungy, right, like a John Gruden in the Super Bowl years, just all those different characters of the game that have come through here and had such an impact on the franchise at different times. It's been really an interesting career following one team that long.
Rick, one thing I wanted to ask you too, and I don't know the best way to ask this question. How do you balance the job of covering Tom Brady off the field without being a tabloid publication, being a respected, reputable beat writer?
It's a great question, Mark, and I think it's one we have conversations about all the time. I think that what's happened in media today, and Ike knows this as a former player. I mean, guys, now social media has become such a big thing. They all have their own social media, but beyond that, there's a lot of fringe media, right? If you have a website, if you want to start a podcast, you can write anything, anytime. But there are the New York Post of the world that have page 6 and more tabloid-esque, the TMZs and all that. We don't try to subscribe to that practice per se. We practice journalism. I think the lines are blurred, and so people don't know the difference just because this has been going on for so long with social media. But our standards are show me a document, who said it, is it on the record, and then there's also I think players are entitled to their personal lives. They do become public figures. There's no doubt about that. And in the case of Brady, he monetizes his persona and involves his family in that. And that's fine. That's his prerogative. But when you're talking about really personal issues like the ones we've read about in some of those tabloids, that to us crosses the line of journalism. Now, again, if there's a document, if there's something filed in a courthouse, if one of them, somebody in his family or him wants to talk about his personal life beyond just the field, we're here to report that. But some of the salacious things that you're reading that are unattributed, we wouldn't go there.
Rick Stroud's most interesting interview.
Wow. Well, you caught me with that one, Ike. I have to think about that. I've done quite a few. What it came down to in covering this beat is like I've told about 4 or 5 coaches they were getting fired. Now they weren't all surprised, but some were. And sometimes they're the last to know. Tony Dungy writes about that in his book, Quiet Strength. I'm actually in there when, they were going to play the Philadelphia Eagles in a wild card game. Now, Tony had gone to the playoffs, turned that franchise around 4 out of 6 years, right? And they're going to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, where their season has ended, it seemed, every year, and it was about to again. And the Bucs have been talking to Bill Parcells for probably about a year. And they had a deal with Parcells to be the next coach of the Buccaneers. They were going to fire Tony Dungy. He had his entire staff picked out. They were going to keep the defensive staff. Everything was done. And I told Tony about it a couple days before he got on the plane to Philadelphia. He didn't believe it. And then when he got on the plane, he realized the Glazer family wasn't on the plane, and they'd always flown with the team charter. And he said to his wife, Lauren, I think maybe something's wrong. And it turns out, he coached the game, they lost. And then they fired him. His key didn't work the next day when he tried to get into the building. And then they went about the process of acting like they were just now contacting Bill Parcells. Parcells ended up pulling out. He was going through a divorce. There's a lot of pushback about the fact that Parcells may have been after Dungy's job before he had a chance to play that playoff game. And so it all fell apart, and they ended up trading for John Gruden, and we know how that worked out. So that series of stories is one that I remember simply because it was such a soap opera for a long time, and it involved someone like Bill Parcells, who then the next year went and coached the Dallas Cowboys. And when he did, the Bucs actually wanted compensation. They pulled out a contract and said, no, he signed a contract with us that he was going to coach our team, so we deserve a draft pick. So it was kind of all over the map there, but that was an interesting one.
Wow. Rick,
that was deep. That was different. That was deep. That was different.
Rick, we want to make sure we get you out on time. Let's leave with this. Tom Brady has the legendary story where he, Derek Jeter, Bill Gates, and Jeff Vinnick are at Burns Steakhouse. Do you have any other legendary Burns Steakhouse stories? Because I know the three of us have all been to Tampa's finest establishment.
Correct.
No, I don't really, not specifically, except that has always been sort of the default place where if they're going to hire a coach or a GM, you just kind of wait outside of Burns. And then you're going to probably figure out who they brought in, because a lot of times that's where free agents, the high price free agents, they go to eat. There's a lot of great steakhouses in Tampa, but Burns is definitely the gold standard with the dessert room and all of that. And I remember going back to some coaches, they had little closed circuit TVs in the dessert room, and they would be watching the news, and there'd be cameras outside of Burns waiting for them to leave the dessert room because they were going to capture them being hired or whatnot, or interviewed. So not any specific ones, but it's a hell of a place, man.
There's Rick Stroud with the Tampa Bay Times. Rick, we want to make sure that we get you out of here. Is there anything you would like to plug? Steelers taking on the Buccaneers in Week 6.
No, I just think it's going to be an interesting game. Look, I know Mike Tomlin from his days here in Tampa Bay. I think the guy is a Hall of Fame coach. It looks like he might suffer his first losing season ever, which is incredible. But Iron Mike is the real deal, man. What you see is what you get. I've followed his career. I've been impressed with him, coming to Tampa and winning a Super Bowl. I mean, all those things that have happened up there with Pittsburgh. And I think they're going to be fine once the young quarterback gets ironed out, but he's going to face a pretty good defense this week. Maybe not as good as the Bills, but pretty good. And so it should be a fun game, and it's always great to be up there in Pittsburgh and sample that culture and the history up there.
Rick, certainly appreciate your time. You can check out his work, tampabay.com. Rick Stroud, Bucs beat writer for the Tampa Bay Times. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good to be with you guys. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on the show.
All right, you bet.
And that was Rick Stroud from the Tampa Bay Times. Ike, heck of a conversation. I had many follow-up questions, but right. I'm glad we got him for the time that we did. Ike, I haven't talked to you in a week. Sunday's game, here's where I'm going to start with Kenny Pickett's first career start. I know the Steelers entered this game as 14-point underdogs. It was the largest underdog deficit the Steelers faced going into a game since 1969. That was before the NFL-AFL merger. But CBS thought this was going to be a closer game because they put their number one team on this game. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo are there. And the Steelers just didn't show up. I know Boswell missed 2 field goals, so maybe it would have been a little bit better. But, man, it just goes to show you, to me, quarterback isn't the only issue in Pittsburgh right now, and the Steelers have now lost 4 in a row.
Yeah, so we just gonna be honest, and this is just my opinion, Mark. Yep. Deontay Johnson said something a couple of weeks ago, and he said we're in a rebuilding year right now, a stage at this point in time. And I know a lot of people didn't want to hear it or don't want to hear it because when you say Pittsburgh, you usually think of success. When you say Pittsburgh, you usually think of playoffs. When you say Pittsburgh, you usually think of, okay, they're going to have an opportunity to hoist that Lombardi. And this year has probably been, I ain't going to say has probably, this year has been the most challenging year, not only for Pittsburgh, not only for the fans, not only for the players, not only for the coaching staff, just everything in general. So, and we say it all the time, sometimes you just got to take heed and listen to what the players say. And this is exactly what the young man said a couple of weeks ago. Frustrating, yeah. If it's somebody I want to go in the trenches with and feel like we have a shot to get ourselves out of this hole, it would be Coach T. That's exactly what it would be. So what I know about Coach T is, and being a head coach, by the end of the day, other than you putting your money up, you're running a $1 billion industry. That's exactly what you're doing, you know? And Coach T has proved time in and time out. I don't know what the record's going to be by the end of the season, but Coach T has proved time in and time out. He's always figured out a way by the end of the season that our team going to have some fight. And the sad thing about it was on Sunday was like, for the most part, it wasn't no fight, Mark, you know? So 3 points, and we've been talking about this throughout the course of the season. I think Pittsburgh is averaging now probably 15, 16 points a game. That's not going to cut it. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers defense have the most plays out of any other team by being on the field. It's not going to cut it. So, yeah, it's a rebuilding. We're in a rebuilding stage, my personal opinion, this year. And the first step of building a block and trying to set a foundation was to get Kenny Pickett on the field. So that's the first step, and that's some fight. Everything else, Coach T, I know Coach T will figure everything else out with this team. But I remember when we played the Patriots, and we got our butt smacked, just like Coach T said. We got a good old-fashioned whooping. And it just be like that sometimes. But the expectations, when you say the Pittsburgh Steelers, you don't think of a 38-3 outlook.
Ike, you're talking about the opener in the 2019 season?
I don't know what year it was. 2019. I'm talking about when I played.
Okay.
So
okay.
It had to be like 2010, 2011.
Okay. We could go back and look that up. To me, this is the worst loss since the 2019 opener against the Patriots when they won 33-3. And Ike, that's when we started doing the Bleav in Steelers show together. I go back to, coaches will put their players in an opportunity to succeed. But before Kenny Pickett even took a snap, Steelers were down 7-0, were very nearly down 2 scores, if not for a field goal block. And then you go put your rookie on the field facing a 7-0 deficit, what could have been a 10-0 deficit or more, maybe a 14-0 deficit before he even takes a snap. And the Bills were without Jordan Poyer. They were without Micah Hyde, their 2 star safeties. On the offensive side of the ball, Dawson Knox, their starting tight end, was out. And they still got smoked. And it was like, man. And we could point to, well, TJ Watt is out. And the Steelers haven't won a game without TJ Watt. 7 sacks in the opener with Watt. The Steelers have 3 sacks in weeks 2, 3, and 4. They didn't sack Josh Allen once on Sunday. And rebuilding year, people might not want to hear it. The question I have is I'm looking at the schedule. It doesn't get any easier with the Bucs next weekend. And it's like, I just hope that the Steelers can win a game between now and the bye week, because this schedule is it's a brutal, brutal stretch for a Steelers team. That I go back to that 2019 season, Ike, and where my brain goes is I remember when Ben got hurt that year, and just with the talent that was on the team, I remember making the analogy, you can't make a gourmet meal with bologna and potato chips. And right now, just the Steelers, they have some talent, which is the frustrating part, but it's rebuilding year. I question whether they can win a game between now and the bye week. And that's just where I'm at right now. That's just my honest opinion.
I'm not going to rebuttal against that, Mark, because the reason being is, so far, Pittsburgh hasn't shown they could. Now, the good thing is when you look at some of the earlier games, Pittsburgh were in the game and they had opportunities to win. You can look at the record could have been different from about 2 games, So against the Jets, they had an opportunity to beat the Jets. Of course, the defense won the first game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So Pittsburgh has been in games. Has had opportunity to win games and close games out. And that just comes with being a professional, and a want to. So, again, what Pittsburgh is 1-4, that's a steep hill to climb that's a really steep hill to climb. So we shall see. But if it's any other coach I would fight with, it would be Coach Tomlin.
Yeah, Bucs at home, then you got the Dolphins and the Eagles as well, Ike. So like I said, it's not getting any easier. You've got the bye week and then the Saints. And I can understand now, seeing what was on the field, this is not to absolve Mitch Trubisky through 3.5 games. But again, it's one game for Pickett. We'll see what he can do in the coming weeks. But 3 points, that's not going to get it done regardless of who you play. And whatever average scoring that the Steelers have, remember, they are aided by Minkah Fitzpatrick's wizardry because he had a pick 6 in the opener against the Bengals, and then he very nearly had a pick 6 against the Jets, set up the Steelers' first touchdown of Kenny Pickett's career. But you're benefiting from the fact that Minkah Fitzpatrick's one of the league's best safeties, and your offense is just point blank broken right now. And here's the thing too, like people this week are going to say, well, where should we assign the most blame? And especially with the rookie quarterback, you're going to have some growing pains with Kenny Pickett. It's not going to be necessarily a linear progression with him. But people will say, well, is it Matt Canada or is it Mike Tomlin? It's everyone right now. It's everyone right now because I'm trying to find silver linings, Ike, and there weren't very many of them on Sunday. It's everyone right now. The blame goes all around. I'm not just going to point to one individual person to assign the most blame because point blank period through the first 5 weeks of the season, this offense isn't getting it done. 23 points is the most the Steelers have scored in a game this season. In the modern NFL in 2022, you're not going to win very many games if that's the case.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you, Mark, but I think you should hit it on the head. Everybody got to get some of that bad sandwich. Everybody got to take some of that bad sandwich. If you know what I'm trying to say, you know, from players to the coaching staff to, you know, the play calling, everybody got to eat that, and it's a bad taste. But the crazy thing about it is, man, you still have life left in this organization, and you still have some games, and there's going to be a lot of doubters, in which it should be, because we have given people the option to doubt, you know? And we say it all the time. I think not all the time, we called it when we was talking about the Jets, and we both agreed the first person to 24 points was going to win that ball game.
Yes.
You know? And that's exactly what happened, Mark. The first person to 24 points won that ball game. So it's just very frustrating. It's frustrating for me to watch. So I can only imagine how frustrating it is for a Cam Hayward. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I'm just mentioning Cam is he came up in our era. He saw how much success we had. He saw the camaraderie we had. He saw the brotherhood in the locker room, in which now he's the head man, he's the leader. And for him to be going through this, I would love to pick his brain, you know. So, but like I say, and you can say what you want to about Coach T, but if there's anybody that could turn some things around and become a magician and Houdini and be like, dang, these boys, we talk about this and let's say 10 more weeks and the record is something totally different. We'll all sit down and be like, only Coach T can pull some stuff off like this. So, but yeah, it's very frustrating to watch, Mark.
For any Steelers fan who needs solace, go back and watch our pregame preview to the Steelers-Jets game. We told you exactly what was going to happen in that game. So, Ike, you nailed it on the head, the first to 24. I correctly predicted that you would see Kenny Pickett in that game, and it played out exactly how I envisioned it, Ike. So thank you for lending me your psychic abilities.
Hey, man, they say teamwork made the dream work.
Yeah, if you need some solace there, Josh Allen put up video game numbers. He had almost 350 yards passing and 4 touchdowns in the first half. Defense, oh, man. Like, I try to find silver linings, and there just weren't many of them. I will say this. Bills, to me, are like the top team in the NFL, and we will see in week 6 because the Bills and Chiefs go head-to-head. Remember that playoff game a year ago? To me, the Bills are playing like a different sport than everyone else. So as bad as the Steelers might have looked on Sunday, you've got to take into account that the Bills are among the NFL's elite right now. So you got to keep that in mind as well.
Moving forward, though, Mark, they got to get a run game. You have to just want to protect your superstar in Josh Allen for the long haul. You have to establish a run game. That's the only question mark I have, and probably the biggest question mark is my number 2 or my number 3 running back shouldn't be Josh Allen. And that's exactly what's going on right now. So that's a huge concern for me. But other than that, what you just said, right now the Buffalo Bills, man, it's like Josh Allen, and he overthrew some throws playing against us. So it could have been worse than what it really was. But I know when it comes down to, and the weather get to changing and you get into these playoff, contentions and you trying to establish something, and we've talked about this often since we started this show. December, January football is real cold. And Josh Allen got an arm to throw in any kind of weather, where we're in Buffalo or Antarctica. He can throw any weather. But by the end of the day, when you want to control something, when you see the teams who are doing well in the playoffs, they got a running back and they got a run game. And they know by the end of the day, it's a keep away. So now the regular season, the playoff season, you only get a couple of possessions. You get to the play. Okay, how you control them possessions? It's called 4 to 6 minute offense. And the only way you can do that is by having a running back. So that's just my only concern with Buffalo. But right now, they just Buffalo is Josh Allen. And Josh Allen is really becoming a mutant when he steps on that field. So you look at Josh Allen like what he can't do.
Yeah, Ike, the one thing with the running game is something going into this Buccaneers game in week 6 for the Steelers. The Bucs ranked near the bottom of the league in rushing, at least through the first 5 weeks of the season. So they're putting the onus on 45-year-old Tom Brady. And, I mean, Brady's the GOAT, no doubt. But one thing I wish we could have asked Rick Stroud is long-term, is that going to be a problem for this Buccaneers team? Because through 5 weeks of the season, that's one advantage I think Pittsburgh would have going into this game as 7.5-point underdogs is Buccaneers can't really run the football, prove that they can beat you through that facet of the game.
Yeah, but if you look at it, Tom Brady, he's been the wizard of this his whole career. People still don't pay attention to it. I do. Leonard Fournette had 10 catches, 102 yards. So, and correct me if I'm wrong. So Tom Brady will use a running back coming out their backfield or some quick passes to a running back to alongside of not having a true running game, that becomes my running game. So for playoff landing to have them amount of looks and catches, that's how Tom Brady do it. Didn't it? When you go to look at how Tom Brady was doing it for the New England Patriots, they really didn't have a running game like that. But Tom wanted running backs who can come out of the backfield and beat these one-on-ones with these angle routes and these swing routes. So he always found a way to manipulate the run game. He's doing the same thing in Tampa, manipulating the run game.
Ike, you're spot on there. Fournette had 10 catches on 11 targets, very efficient, 83 yards and a touchdown. So can the Steelers use Najee the same way? Can we use Jalen Warren the same way? Let's take a page out of their book and do what's successful. This is why Ike Taylor with the eagle eye right there, Ike. Great observation from you there, Ike.
Appreciate you.
All right, Ike, let's move on to greener pastures.
Okay.
We didn't get to talk last week because you were out in California scouting for the Steelers. Please take this in any direction. I don't know. I know you were in Los Angeles, you're in San Diego a bit. If you can just let our listeners and viewers what you were doing out there, and we can kind of go from there. Take this in any direction you'd like.
So I went out there, and first of all, a huge shout out to Omar Khan, who's the GM. Major shout out to the Rooney family, and also Coach T and front office and staff. But really just giving me this opportunity. This is a dream job, so for me it's not a job. You know what I'm saying, Mark? But to actually go out in the field, like I was excited to go out in the field and see how this thing works. Big shout out to Calvin Fisher. Calvin kind of took me under his wing. He's one of the head scouts for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big shout out for him. And just teaching me and showing me, you know, what to look for, what to do, what not to do, how to write a report, positive, negative summaries, give grades on guys, first, second, third, fourth, fifth round, free agents. So, and for me, which helped me out, Mark, it was me already watching tape because I'm a tape head. So now I go from watching tape to having to write the report. But now we can really go in depth with it. So I get to see and talk to the kids, not talk to, but I get to see them personally. Like, so now I get to talk to a position coach, the weight room coach. Like, you're starting to get more in depth to it. So, and honestly, went to USC, Chris Carter I played with, Sean Noah I played with, UCLA, Sean Foster. He's now in the strength and conditioning, major running back for UCLA back in the day. So I'm starting to see a lot of people I didn't play with are now into coaching or into something for their college. And I'm like, check that off. Man, this really gonna help me. You know, so just seeing how these kids interact, for me, Mark, it's not a job. It's something, like I got a vision, I have a plan, and you already know because we talk off script a lot on what I really want to be when it comes down to it by the end of the day. But Mark, man, if you this like a dream come true. You know what I'm saying? I look forward to it, you know. Just writing reports. I still have to finish writing a few guys and write what I need to and sending it off to the boss man. But I could have been finished it off, but I needed something to do. So, you know, it gave me something to do and look forward to through each day. But and just wanting to be part of the Pittsburgh organization and wanting to have some kind of input in drafting players to hoist another Lombardi. I want to be a part of that process. I did it as a player. I want to be a part of it as a scout and in the front office. So that's where I'm at with it. And I'm not going to overanalyze. I'm not going to overthink. And you say it all the time because you've been around me going on 3 years. Like, I always use my eyes and my gut instinct. Like, I don't never second guess nothing. So this is exactly what I'm doing. You know, when I look at a player, I write reports. I'm not going to overanalyze nothing. Boom, I send it in, I'm good. But I think the good man has given me a gift, and that's having an eye for talent. So I'm finally getting to use my eyes.
When you're at these schools, how many players are you analyzing? And then are you watching them in practice? Are you watching tape with the coaches? When you're actually there, what is it that you're doing, Ike?
So you're watching tape with the other scouts because it's other scouts there as well. So you're watching tape with the other scouts. We all evaluating. But you don't watch with the players. The players, they're on their own schedule because they're in college, so they have things to do. So you get to go in practice, and practice just give you a gauge. Practice just give you a gauge, Mark, on asking questions to other players about players you're looking at. Like, hey, who the alpha on this team is right here? And you already got your list. And if it's one of the guys that you got on the list, you like, check that off. All right. Who's the most interesting player on this team? And you just ask random teammates, you know, if it's one of the guys on the list, and why? If it's one of the guys on the list, it's like, all right, cool. So it's just you can get more in depth onto them personally by asking their teammates, because their teammates know everything about them, whether it's on the field or off the field, personal life, academics, blase, blase. So that's what I can touch you. I can touch you now. So it's a difference between, and you and I know this, before we was always on call. So we always did Zoom. We always did it through here. But then when you actually came to Orlando and we touched and we sat down and we talked and we had that ride together towards one of the games on Saturdays when I was coaching, it's a little bit different. So now it hits a little bit different. It's like, okay, I know this person. So that's what these trips does. When you take these trips, you get to actually, in a short amount of time, try to gauge and get a feel on guys you're looking at that you can possibly draft.
Big difference in person versus seeing something on tape, Ike. Is you stole my follow-up question. My last question is going to be this, Ike. Of all the facilities that you saw, which was most impressive and why? Because some of these major D1 schools, oh baby. What I did know was USC was a private school. That's what I didn't know. So once I found that out, I'm like, oh, that's why these locker rooms look like this. That's look like this. Like somebody could just write a blank check and be like, man, have at it. Don't even worry about it. Whatever y'all need, y'all get. So, but just, when you just go to the state of California, in the time I went, the high was 78, the low was 55. It's just like, the weather's so good over there, it just puts your mind somewhere totally different to where your own mind sitting in traffic for 3 hours. Because, traffic bad as hell over there on that West Coast. Oh, yeah.
Brutal. Brutal. So for me, it was just like, man, if I had opportunity to kind of rewind my career and the colleges I could have been to, it would have been one of these colleges on the West Coast, because, man, this is good living. This is real good living. Because Cali for me, I always like to step ahead on things they do when it comes down to just the environment, whether it's eco, go green, anything innovative. I think Cali, always, a step ahead. Then we all got to catch up, moving from Cali all the way to the south, northeast. So, but yeah, Mark, just to see them facilities, I'm like, dang, I had to run my Ford in a horse pasture. That's what I had to do. I said, man, these kids got they got a smoothie kit right in their weight room. Them boys got massage therapists on site. I said, man, I ain't know nothing about a massage to my second year in the league. These boys getting that. As soon as they hop out of bed, they come from class. So it's just fun to see, But for me, it was just California different. All the way different, Mark. But, to see them colleges in a big city, just swallow a big college up. You can drive past UCLA and not even know it. You can drive past USC and not even know it, But once you get inside that college, you like bread, cheese, fetty. Wow. number money around here, baby.
Ike, you mentioned the traffic. I've been all over the country. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. I've been to the Big Apple, New York. The city's so great they named it twice, and Atlanta. All three, traffic can get absolutely crazy. Right. LA, when you're in bumper to bumper at like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. at night on the interstate, no thank you. So the traffic out there, been to LA a few times, Ike. Do not miss that.
I see why when you have money and you live in LA, you buy you a helicopter.
Yes.
I see why people do that in LA. That's when you know you got money. Hey, what's your Uber? on my Uber the tail number on the helicopter. So we'll get there ASAP. If you got to be there for 8 o'clock and you got that kind of money and they stressing like, man, we need like an hour and a half, window because of this traffic. And you got all that money sitting in the bank. Mm-hmm. You're like, nah, we're going to take the chopper. We'll get there in 10 minutes. We straight. So it's a little bit different. But now I see why them boys who got their money over there, they buy them a chopper.
Absolutely. I hope this has been helpful therapy to our listeners and viewers, and I think it will be because, again, I'm a glass half full guy. Sunday's game was brutal, and maybe the Steelers can regroup in Week 6 against the Buccaneers. I want to thank you, today's guest, Rick Stroud, our video producers over at Brinks TV, led by John Brinkus, Courtney Vargas, Herbert Diaz, producers Megan and Yancey. I want to thank the Bleav Network, today's sponsor of the Bleav in Steelers show, betonline.ag. They'll take care of any of your NFL gambling needs. We're into MLB postseason. But I hope that we provided some solace for Steelers fans here on this Monday.
Yeah, we all heard, Mark. I mean, Mark, you have become an honorary Steelers fan because of So for you to even hurt, which you don't have to hurt, but for you just to hurt because you look at me as like a brother, and that's what it is. Whether you're a scout, a GM, a fan, a player. Like right now, we just in a hurting phase. Like Mondays are never good when you lose, especially when you lose like that. So, but yeah, man, major shout out to betonline.ag. Huge shout out to Brinks TV, Bleav Podcast, Mark. You're my brother. Big shout out to you as well. Make sure y'all give us a 5-star rating every time. All we try to do is be insightful. I can say I can say as much as I need to say, but understand for the viewers and the subscribers that, some things I kind of got to button up on because my position now. But if y'all can read in between the lines of what I'm saying, man, y'all pick it up ASAP. I think Mark has done a great job just being around me and just picking up stuff that I say without me even saying it. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and being a part of this Bleav in podcast between Mark and I. But Mark, I want to appreciate you too. And I got to give a major shout out to everybody behind the scenes if I missed anybody. Because without y'all, Mark and I wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. And that's been going strong for like 3 years.
Yeah, our 4th season, Ike. It's crazy how much time flies. Go ahead and sign off here for Ike Taylor. And again, thank you to our guest, Rick Stroud. Go give him a shout out on social media too if you enjoyed our conversation. I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you for watching the Bleav in Steelers show. We'll see you later this week. We'll get you ready for Steelers and Bucs in Week 6. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.
Peace.